More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 5:15 from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. This is the Zach Gelb Show. We'll continue the Eagles and Phillies conversation right now with the jack of all trades, and that is Kevin Cooney of the Bucks County Courier-Times, who covers both the Phillies and the Eagles, and he's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Kevin, always great to have you on. Thank you for the time, and how are you, my friend?
Not bad, Zach. I'm jack of all trades, master of none, apparently. So.
Hey, I always love reading your work in the Bucks County Courier-Times and online and all that stuff. Let me get to something, though, that I'm not very happy with, and that's Odubel Herrera. So I see that Odubel Herrera's not in the lineup tonight, but Pete McCann says it's not a benching, it's just a day off. What can you tell us about this?
Well, I mean, you can take it for what it's worth. I mean, Aaron Altera was not we were told yesterday Aaron Altera was not going to come back till Friday when asked directly, and suddenly Altera's off the disabled list. And yeah, Daniel Nava's back on, but you know the timing does raise an eyebrow or two. Look, I mean, I think this isn't a performance issue. I mean, when you look at Herrera's numbers over the last really 70 weeks since the start of June, his numbers have been outstanding. The problem is, though, that Pete continues to have to put out these little fires involving Herrera. And this, to be honest, should not come as a surprise to anybody around here. This is who Odubel Herrera is. And, I know it drives fans nuts at times, but this is who he's been. This is who the Phillies signed, and this is who he's going to be until further notice.
Here's my problem with it. And last night, we'll get into that in just a few seconds, but let's go with the action that happened today. Yeah, Pete McCann, who always says he's just a different character, you've got to deal with him in a certain way. Isn't it time for Pete to 110% just chastise the guy and say, hey, this is a benching? Because I think Pete's handling this poorly.
Well, and Zach, it's funny. I asked him today directly. I asked Pete, I'm like, would you do anything different now? That this is a couple years down the road and you're still having kind of the same issues. And Pete almost cut off the question and said, no, absolutely not. So, look, this is not a Pete issue, I think. This is an organizational issue in a sense where, the organization, whether they want to admit it or not, there is a little bit of a difference in the way that they view Herrera between the front office and even, I believe, some on the old school baseball side, okay? I think the analytics people look at Herrera, who can throw up an OPS of over 1,000 like he has the last 6 weeks, or this month, and can get hot and everything, and they just kind of look past all of the other stuff. And I think the old school baseball people, and I'm not sure if I would count McCann in that, but I'm sure I know there's others in this building who look at the other stuff and goes, well, if you're going to be on a contender, you can't do that. And, this is, I think, the little clash of cultures that goes on here. But again, when the Phillies signed him last year to that extension, this is the guy they got. This is not a change. So this is kind of what you reaped, what you signed.
But it looks like
good and bad.
But here's what it looks like. It looks like you have a player who's good. We all know that, what he's done in June and July, but he continues to make these boneheaded decisions, which he's been punished for in the past, also in the wallet with some of the fines, and he still doesn't get it. Doesn't the manager, I'll ask it again, doesn't the manager have to be a little bit more critical of him? Because it looks like Odubel is walking over Pete McCann when they talked about these things before.
I think that the fine line that Pete's been trying to walk, I'm not sure is doing him any good at this point. I mean, I think, but again, I think that Pete's trying to serve a lot of different people here. He's trying to watch out for the other 24 in the clubhouse who have, as we saw by the camera up statements last night, have certainly taken notice, of what's going on here, with Herrera and all that. And I'm sure some of them are probably a little tired of having to deal with it over and over again. I'm sure he's listening to analytic people who are just upstairs who are just saying, hey, the numbers are what the numbers are, and he's your best player overall. I think in that sense, Pete's in a really tough spot. Should he probably have been harsher? In my opinion, yes. I think he should have been harsher at some points here and maybe made prolonged benchings of 3-4 games. But, when you're playing 333 baseball pretty much. I think the manager sometimes looks at the win-loss record and goes, I got to do what's best for my team to win that night so I can keep my job.
Is Pete here next year? Is he the manager next year?
If they lose 100 games, it's going to be awful difficult for him to return. And I know that, it's not about wins and losses and everything, but, the mantra has been, who has gotten better here? And that's where I think the main question comes. I mean, the question is, who has progressed? And Herrera, for all of his problems, has gotten better as the years gone along. Maikel Franco, and Zach, it's amazing to me. All the Herrera stuff last night took a lot of heat off of Franco, who has looked horrible in this homestand and whose numbers in this place have dropped into the 160s over the last 32 games. I mean, this is a problem that is clear. Maikel Franco hits differently in Citizens Bank Park than he does anywhere else, and that's a problem for this team going forward. So, I just think when you get to that point, maybe they start fresh and bring somebody else in. But again, if they have a good second half, if they get under 100 losses at the end of the year, certainly they can justify him returning.
Talking to Kevin Cooney right now from the Bucks County Courier-Times. All right, with last night, I made this point to start the show. The bat flip really did annoy me because it was an out, and I'm someone that likes bat flipping and all that, and I think it adds a fun element to the game, but you got to make sure you hit a home run. The not running on strike 3 last night, I just really legitimately believe he did not see the ball dropped. How about yourself with those two issues last night?
Well, when we got Herrera today, he really didn't comment about that part. He had to go. He talked to us for about 2 minutes and then had to go do his stretching exercises. So
that's a bad job.
I think if you think about it, Zach, this is, by the way, there's a tour group going through here. That's why it might be a little noisy in the background. I think when you look at, I think the bigger sin is not running the third strikeout. The bat flip to me, and anybody who's around him, a long time, you get numb to it. I mean, that's just who he is. I mean, the bat flip on walks, bat flip on long flyouts and everything, and did the Astros make fun of him? Sure. I'm sure it's hilarious for another team when they see that, but it's who he is, and you do have to watch about with a guy like Herrera trying to take that element away because it may change the entire way he plays the game.
But since this has been a habitual issue, why doesn't he have some pride and try to correct this thing? Like, why is it that this is just the way that he is and that no one can really connect to him?
Because I think that Odubel Herrera and Zach, I'm older than you. I'm of that generation, which this was an absolute no-no, okay? Unless you put one in the upper deck. I think you see now more of a showmanship in the game, trying to emphasize personality and all that. There's a little bit of a culture, situation in it too, where, especially like Dominican players and all that have seemed to embrace that, and that's part of their culture, and that's the party they play the game, and they have fun playing the game. So I don't see where this is look, for all the talk of bat flips and everything, Odubel Herrera has never really worn one for all the antics. Okay, no pitchers felt like he showed them up. Everybody seems to understand what he is. So I don't think it's that big a deal. I really don't at this point.
All right, Kevin, just also one more thing with Odubel, then we'll get to the trade deadline stuff. He only spoke for 2 minutes today. That was it? He didn't really face the music, that means.
Well, he came out and maybe 3 minutes, through an interpreter and everything. But again, he had to go out for stretch. So it was timing of we all got Pete. Pete was over about 4:15-ish. And then we go and we get him in the, at his locker, and then he had to go run off to get stretched. And I'm sure he didn't want to be late today, after what's going on. So I think it's a little more understandable, given those circumstances, that it was a tight session.
Do you believe Pete would use him tonight in a pitch hitting situation?
Yeah, I think in this spot when this club needs a win against Houston to just get some momentum back that they had, I mean, yeah, I think he would.
All right, let's get to the deadline stuff before we get over to the Eagles. Deadline coming up soon. What do you expect the Phils to do from now into the deadline?
I think that, look, Pat Neshek, I think, is going to go. Daniel Nava is now obviously off the table since the disabled list deal took place and he will not be there. He won't really be playing anymore before the deadline on Monday. I still, Zach, if you think about it, I still don't see a way where they can't, even if it's on 10 cents on the dollar, they can't have Howie Kendrick here on August 1st in Anaheim when they go out there. I think if you think about it, okay, that the situation becomes really complicated if you have two guys in your outfield that you're trying to move and give time to, and you have three guys that you want to see play in Herrera and Williams and Altair. So to me, it just makes sense that, you move Kendrick for whatever you can get before the deadline, and then you move on. And you worry about the Nava trade in August. It's one less thing you have to worry about through the waiver period.
Is Tommy Joseph here in a few days?
Yeah, I think so. I don't sense there's much of a market for him at this point. And I think could he go in August if somebody gets hurt? Yeah, but I also think it's more likely than not that September 1st is the earliest you'll see Rhys Hoskins.
Wrapping up with Kevin Cooney from the Bucks County Courier-Times. All right, let's get into the Eagles. The Jordan Matthews situation will be interesting tomorrow. Howard Eskin says that Matthews will be there and he'll address the injury situation. There's been speculation the injury's a little bit more worse, and then there's been some speculation it could be contract-related. Where do you fall in this side of the argument? Who do you believe on this one?
Having been over here, I have not been able to nose over to the NovaCare complex, if you will, to find out. But, in talking to some people that have been, they tend to think it's something like tendonitis. And so I don't think it's a contract situation. I think it's more of probably a very precautionary. Look, Zach, there's just the preseason in the NFL is ridiculously long. So to me, the idea of whether he's here on day 2 of camp or day 3 of camp and everybody's hyperventilating is overblown. And to be honest, it's Jordan Matthews. If it was somehow like Alshon Jeffries and everything, it's a slot receiver.
You're right.
So everybody pump the brakes. To be honest, on the Eagles, everybody should pump the brakes a little bit here. Everybody's a little bit out of their minds about what this team is, when in reality, they're a big question mark still.
How many wins do you put them at this year?
I have them at 7. I don't like their schedule at all. I think there's a shot they could start 1-4.
Wow. Oh, that would be a disaster, especially for
because
Doug.
they don't play well in Washington. They go to Kansas City after Kansas City's had 10 days off. I think when you look at it, there's just a real stretch here that they could be in a deep hole digging out of after September.
Well, that would be a terrible season if they get 7 wins. I don't think it's this big, bright future for the Eagles this year. I think they're moving in the right direction. But I judge this year as a success. You have to be better than 7 wins. You need to see improvement out of the quarterback and continue to see him grow. And also, we need to see the coach actually be a coach, which the decision-making is a problem.
I think that's one of the bigger issues. And to be honest, I think their depth is a major issue. And that's what surprised me about today along the lines in Alan Barber. They just dispatched him. I understand the Marcus Smith, but Barber at least, was an extra person you can move around on that line if there was an issue. For them to give up that easy, I thought was ridiculous. Again, secondary is, I think, awful right now. Linebacker depth is a big problem. I think that they have serious issues and a tough schedule. That's a bad combo.
Hey, Kevin, great stuff. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
No problem, Zach.
There's Kevin Cooney from the Bucks County Courier-Times. So, Pete McCann is Mr. Softee now. That's what he's turned into. Mr. Softee. That's a bad job by the manager. If you're going to sit a player down, don't give me this crap that it's just an off day. We saw the actions last night. We saw the boneheaded decisions. And it continues, and it's an habitual issue. And I can't stand for a second after a game where Pete McCann, whenever these things happens, he comes to the defense of Odubel Herrera. And I get it. You can't bash your player all the time. You need to pick and choose your battles. But when Odubel Herrera constantly walks over you and shows a lack of respect when you have sat him down before, when you have pulled him from games before, and you have fined him and you made him get hurt financially in the pocket. And this guy still doesn't get it, and you continue to need to hear from the manager, he's just a different character. You've got to deal with him in a certain way. It's got to stop. And I know he was critical of him last night, but go 110% in when you chastise the player now at this point. And don't let him get off easy. And I'll tell you this, tonight, it will be the ultimate Mr. Softee type of move by Pete Maccann, is if it's in the 8th inning, and if they have, and he has the audacity to put this guy up at the plate tonight in a pinch hitting situation. You just can't do it. Sit this guy down tonight like you're doing right now, but sit him down for all 9 innings. And if you go to extra innings, I don't want to see him. Do not play him. Don't be Mr. Softee, Pete Maccann. We're playing you the music right now because you are Mr. Softee right now. The man that has been all about fundamentals and playing the game the right way. Well, you're being a hypocrite this year because you're letting a player dictate who the boss is. And when you let the inmates run the asylum, guess what? You'll be out of a job soon. And Pete Maccann will be out of a job soon. He has done an absolutely terrible job with handling Odubel Herrera this year. It's been terrible. And I understand there's different voices involved, but you are the manager of the team. You decide who is going to be on that lineup card. And you decide the reasons why this guy is playing or not playing. And when a guy last night does what he did and you pull him from the game, and then you decide to bench him the next day and then say, oh, it's not a benching, it's an off day. I can't take that. Pete, show some cojones, stand up to this guy, and stop saying, oh, that's just who he is, he's a different character, and all that. No, make sure that this guy gets your message. And if he doesn't get your message, even though he's been extremely productive in June or July statistically, put his ass on the bench. It's not that difficult. And you know why I get so fired up about this? Because right now, the Phillies stink. There's going to be a day again where the Phillies are good. And Odubel Herrera should still be on this team. Well, if you don't shut down these issues now and shut down these habitual problems now, when your team is good and when the games actually count for something, and you're not just waiting for the draft next year, but when those games actually count for something and he does something stupid and he has this inane behavior continue, then it's going to hurt you. So Pete may not be here next year. Pete may not be here when they're actually good. But if you don't stop these issues, you're giving the player too much power. And you need to stop it now so when you're ready to win, the player goes about it the right way. And don't get me wrong. I enjoy a bat flip. Baseball to some is pedestrian, and it's a pedestrian sport right now. The bat flip does add a sense of exuberance to the game. But when you bat flip and you don't hit a home run, you look like a clown. And when you fly out last night, like he did in bat flip, you look like a clown. It's time to make sure that this message is pounded into the brain of Odubel Herrera. And Pete Maccann was soft today when he elected to hide him and protect this player from the media by saying, oh, this is just a day off. I don't want to see him on the field tonight. I don't want to see him pinch hitting tonight. I don't want to see him tonight. Pete, grow some cojones. Pete, publicly chastise this player and tell the truth. Be transparent and say you're sitting him down because this has been an habitual issue. Players are noticing it. Cameron Rupp noticed it last night. Fans noticed it. They booed him last night. Make sure this kid gets the message. And right now, he doesn't get the message. 609-919-9200. This is the Zach Gelb Show. All right, we'll take a break. 5:35. Got that out of my system. Zach Gelb Show. We're coming on back right after this. When we get back, we'll tackle the CTE issue and the CTE study. Pro Football Talk did a terrible job last night when it came to the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll get into some more Mets, Yanks, and Phils and all that coming up next on the Zach Gelb Show.